Hey guys, in today's video we step into a story that's as chaotic as it is overlooked. The story of what it was like to be a freshly drafted Red Army conscript in the summer of 1941. The Germans have just launched Operation Barbarossa, and you're about to be thrown into one of the worst conflicts in human history with little more than a potato sack for a uniform and instructions scribbled in pencil. You're not ready. But that won't stop them from sending you. Before you fall asleep, feel free to like and subscribe, but only if stories from deep inside World War II are your kind of thing. Let me know in the comments what city you're tuning in from and what time it is. It always amazes me how far these slow, dusty stories manage to march. Now, get comfortable. Let your mind slow down. We're stepping into another time. No headlines, just the quiet moments that shaped a generation. You're 19 and have never left your village. You were working in the kolkhoz yesterday, hauling sacks of beets under a sun that always seemed to sit just too low in the sky. The morning it happens, there's no big announcement. No speeches in the town square, just a man on a motorbike with a dusty leather pouch full of names. Yours is one of them. He doesn't even dismount, just tosses you the paper like he's handing out bread. You are hereby called to service, it says, in blunt Cyrillic type. There's a hammer and sickle in the top corner to make it official, and no return address. Your mother cries in the kitchen, pretending she's slicing onions. Your father doesn't speak. He just ties a scrap of cloth around your wrist, a charm from his own days in the Great War. You wish it were something more useful, like boots that fit or a map. But you nod, hug your sister longer than expected and walk. You travel first by foot, then by wagon, and finally by an overcrowded bus that smells like boiled cabbage and regret. Every stop brings more young men. Most have never held a rifle. One kid named Misha still has hay in his hair from the barn he slept in the night before. He jokes the army will issue him a comb before a gun. No one laughs. Not really. By the time you reach the draft station, a chipped concrete building with faded Lenin posters, there are nearly 200 of you. Some are missing teeth. Others are missing paperwork. Nobody seems to care. A sergeant reads your name from a list and points. Next. No salutes, no medals. Just your new identity. Soldier of the Workers' and Peasants' Red Army. You're told to strip, and you do. In a room that echoes like a bathhouse, you hand over your clothes and get back something that looks like it belonged to 3 other people. Your tunic is 2 sizes too big. Your trousers don't match. The boots squeak like frightened mice. "Congratulations," says the quartermaster, puffing on a cigarette with a hole in the filter. "You're ready to defend the motherland." The training yard is just a gravel patch surrounded by a fence that doesn't connect on one side. Your instructor has one eye and a limp, but shouts like he's commanding the Kremlin Guard. "Hold the rifle like you're holding a woman," he screams. You're not sure whether that's supposed to be helpful, romantic, or terrifying. You learn to march in lopsided formations and fire at wooden silhouettes shaped vaguely like people. The rifles are old. Some even date back to the Tsar. They jam easily, and one actually discharges when a boy named Anatoly sneezes. The bullet ricochets off a metal can and hits no one, thankfully. Historians still argue whether the early Soviet infantry's equipment was incompetence, necessity, or both. You stop arguing when you realise how little it matters. What matters is that war has started, and it's moving faster than anyone expected. The Germans are already across the border. Rumours say Minsk has fallen, or maybe Kyiv, or maybe both. No one really knows. and the officers aren't telling. The first night, you sleep on the floor of a drafty barracks. Someone plays a harmonica, someone else coughs through the whole night. You lie awake staring at the ceiling, your thoughts a jumbled mess of fear, pride and complete confusion. There's a kid next to you, barely 16, who says his brother is already missing. He doesn't say more. He doesn't have to. In the morning, you're given a greasy ladle of kasha and a piece of black bread you could chip a tooth on. One man insists the bread's not stale. It's just firm Soviet texture. You laugh, because that's easier than thinking about how little you ate. A day later, you're herded into formation again. The officer paces. The fascists think they can break us. But we are Soviet men. We are steel. You want to believe him. Really you do. But the steel you feel in your stomach is more like a sinking weight. One you can't name. And then comes a twist. Your training is done. That's it. 3 days. Not because you're ready, but because the front is moving fast. You're going west, they say. You will stop the Germans. You will defend the revolution. You will uphold the dignity of the proletariat. You will probably not survive this. No one says it out loud, but you feel it in the way the lieutenant doesn't meet your eyes when he hands you your ammunition. 5 rounds, that's all. 5. You whisper something under your breath, maybe a prayer, maybe a curse. Your comrade slaps you on the back and says, "If you shoot like you march, we're all doomed." You manage a grin because that's the only armour you've got left, and so you march. Boots scraping against gravel, rifle slung over your shoulder, mind buzzing with half-learned drills and the smell of cabbage from that damned bus still in your nose. The road is long, the sky a dull grey, and the war ahead of you looms like a bad dream you haven't yet woken from. You arrive at the depot half a day later, after marching until your feet feel like bricks wrapped in damp wool. It's not a camp so much as a field with a fence and some tents barely holding their shape. There's a queue to be fully issued, which is a bit of a joke, like calling a half-eaten potato a banquet. You stand in line beside boys who look just as out of place as you feel. One of them has the wrong boots entirely, brown leather parade shoes with no laces. Another has a coat so large he's tripping over it like a drunk in an overcoat contest. The officer checking names scribbles something illegible, then waves you forward with a grunt. "Uniform?" he asks without looking up. You show him what you've got. Mismatched jacket and trousers, a cap that smells like mildew, and boots that might once have fit someone named Boris in 1928. The officer shrugs. Close enough. Here's your belt. The belt is frayed, the buckle bent. There's a faint blood stain near the end. You try not to stare at it. You're also handed a shoulder bag made from something that might be canvas, might be hope, and is certainly falling apart. It contains a tin spoon, a dented cup, and half a bar of army-issue soap. No packaging, just a soft square of beige that smells faintly of diesel. Boots are the big issue though. Most soldiers in 1941 don't get new ones. You either get boots too large, or too small, or none at all. In your case it's too tight variety. They creak with every step, pressing against your toes like they're trying to escape. Your neighbour, a tall guy from Leningrad named Victor, grins and lifts one foot to reveal something more art project than footwear. Layers of cloth tied with twine. Field innovation, he says, plus they smell like home. The quartermaster overhears and laughs. Comrade Stalin's finest. Then, dead serious, adds, "Don't lose them, there are no spares." Whether he means the boots or the feet inside them isn't clear. Next up, your rifle. If you're lucky, you get a Mosin Nagant. If you're less lucky, you get a Mosin Nagant missing parts. One poor soul receives just the stock, no barrel. Training model, someone quips. He doesn't laugh. You're handed yours, a full rifle, surprisingly intact with scratches etched into the wood and a bolt that sticks if you breathe wrong. No sling, of course. You cradle it like something sacred, because it might be all that stands between you and the abyss. You ask about ammunition. 5 rounds, says the sergeant, handing over a paper-wrapped bundle like he's rationing candy. Use them wisely. 5 bullets. For a war. Historians still argue whether the shortage was due to supply chain chaos, unrealistic production quotas, or sheer Soviet optimism. You suspect it's a mix of all three, with a side of nobody planned for Germany moving this fast. Your helmet, when it arrives, is a heavy, round thing that clunks against your ears every time you turn your head. It smells like mouldy potatoes, but at least it's steel, probably. The final part of your kit is a small canvas pouch containing a field dressing, a pencil stub, and a card with your name, serial number, and blood type written in fading ink. That last part feels strange, like someone already expects to find your unconscious body and figure out what to do with it. By late afternoon, you're gathered into a lopsided formation. A political officer climbs onto a crate and begins a speech. His uniform is spotless. His boots shine. His voice is clear, sharp, like it's been trained to cut through the noise of fear and hunger. You are the vanguard of the proletarian struggle, he announces. You're fighting not just for land, but for truth, for justice, for the eternal flame of socialism. The man next to you whispers, "What's eternal is this speech." Another mutters, "His boots could defeat Hitler alone." You're not supposed to laugh, but you do, quietly. It helps. The officer continues, "The fascist beast must be crushed beneath your heels. Each of you is a hammer, each of you a shield." You wonder if he's ever held a hammer, or a shield, or a rifle. He doesn't look like it. Then comes the kicker. You will receive further training on the journey west. That gets everyone's attention. Training on the train. You look around. Most nod like this makes sense. Others don't bother pretending. One guy says aloud, "I suppose the train will teach us how to aim while moving." Another shrugs. "Maybe the Nazis will agree to wait until we're ready." Even the sergeant smirks. The group begins to move toward the rail yard. Slowly, awkwardly. You lug your pack, your rifle, your helmet, and what's left of your patience. The boots pinch, your belt digs in. The sun is low and hot, and the road ahead looks like it's been stomped by 1,000 regrets. As you walk, you hear a strange sound. Singing. Somewhere in the rear ranks, a baritone voice belts out a workers' march, completely off-key. Others join in, not because it's tuneful, but because it's something. A rhythm, a breath of defiance. You add your voice too. Even if you don't know all the words, even if the words feel hollow, it makes the wait a little easier. You pass a small station. Civilians gather to watch. Some cheer, some weep. One woman hands out dried apples to anyone who passes close enough. You catch a slice and pocket it. Later, in the dark, it'll taste like memory. A boy waves a red flag. His father doesn't wave, just watches, arms crossed, brow furrowed. You wonder what he sees in you. Another face marching to uncertainty, or just another statistic. When the train appears, it's not the sleek machine you hoped for. It's a string of battered boxcars and open flatbeds, pulled by a soot-stained engine that wheezes like it's seen too much. There are no seats, no lights, no guards. You climb aboard with 40 others. It smells like livestock and old despair. Someone has carved victory or vodka into one of the walls. Below it, both, if possible. You find a corner and claim it. Wrap your coat around your feet. Use your rifle as a prop for your head. The train lurches forward, screeching like it's reluctant. You watch the depot vanish, replaced by empty plains and distant smokestacks. The train keeps moving west, and so do you. The train rolls on and time turns mushy. You lose track of hours, of landscapes, of anything that isn't the damp wood beneath you and the ache that's wormed its way into your lower back. The air inside the car is a thick stew of unwashed bodies, boiled onions and wet wool. You crack the sliding door just a finger's width to let in some breeze, but it's mostly dust and diesel. Better than nothing. Every so often, the train shudders to a stop for no apparent reason. Once, it's because the tracks ahead are under inspection. Another time, it's to let a supply car pass, loaded with crates of potatoes and propaganda leaflets. At one stop, you see a group of NKVD men at the siding. They're not here for you, but their presence is a reminder. Discipline is a matter of life and mysterious disappearance. To pass the time, someone starts a debate over who's the best Soviet poet. A man named Pavel insists it's Mayakovsky. All fire and iron, like real Soviet spirit. Another guy votes for Asenin, quietly adding, he wrote like he already knew we were doomed. You keep your opinion to yourself and stare out the door slit, watching birch trees zip by in a flickering blur. Then comes the lecture. Right on cue, as promised, the political officer climbs into your boxcar at one of the longer stops. He carries a briefcase, somehow still clean, and a face that suggests he'd rather be lecturing at a university than here, balanced on a sack of onions in a moving livestock car. Comrades, he begins, already sweating. We must understand the ideological dimensions of our struggle. You think, here we go. He talks about the imperialist war of aggression, about Marx, about Lenin's dreams and Stalin's strength, about how the fascist threat is not just military, it's philosophical. They want to erase our ideas, comrades, our very truth. Someone in the back coughs. It sounds suspiciously like a snort. The German worker, the officer says, has been brainwashed into servitude. The Soviet worker, on the other hand, is the beating heart of progress. Someone mutters, beating heart must be on vacation. You suppress a smile, you shouldn't, but it's hard not to when you've gone 3 days without changing socks. Still, you try to focus, because underneath the buzzwords and dogma, you catch flashes of something that might matter. The Germans are coming, fast, and no one, not even this well-pressed officer, seems entirely sure what to expect. There's no talk of trenches, no maps handed out, no explanation of your unit's role in the larger plan, just slogans, endless slogans. We fight for the future of the collective. Each fascist is a bullet wasted. The motherland breathed through your bayonets. At some point he pulls out a small book and begins reading passages from Lenin. His voice rises, trying to summon fire from dead ink. Someone dozes off. Someone else pretends to clean their rifle. The man next to you, a wiry mechanic from Smolensk, pulls a tiny notebook from his pocket and begins drawing birds in the margins of his orders. You catch his eye. He shrugs. If I'm going to die, I want to do it remembering wings. You don't know what to say, so you just nod. Eventually, the officer wraps up his lecture with the triumphant, "Victory is inevitable," and exits the car, leaving behind a silence that feels heavier than his words. The train lurches forward again. You eat when the train stops long enough to hand out food, usually bread that's half mould, sometimes a scoop of cold buckwheat porridge in a tin lid. Once, gloriously, they pass out sausage. It smells like actual meat. You savour it like a holiday. Water's harder to come by. You fill your canteen at random wells and hope for the best. Someone gets sick after drinking from a puddle. No one talks about it. He's just not in your car the next day. The nights are the worst. You try to sleep, but the rattle of the tracks works against you. Someone snores. Someone dreams loudly in Ukrainian. One night, a fight breaks out over a stolen cigarette. It ends quickly. A sharp warning from the sergeant and a boot to the ribs settle the matter. You doze. You wake. You stare into nothing. By the fourth day, the singing has stopped. The jokes too. Everyone's quiet. Even Victor, who'd been making up songs about German tanks and cabbage, sits with his chin in his hands. The landscape begins to change. Fewer trees, more marshland, flattened fields and distant smoke on the horizon. You pass a village that looks like it's been kicked apart by giants, roofs collapsed, wells burned, and chickens pecking through someone's upturned drawer. No one says a word, but the message is clear. The war has already been here. Eventually someone starts talking about tactics. Not the grand kind, but the kind you can actually use. Shoot from shadow, says one man. If they see the flash, you're done. Another says, aim low. Gut wounds mean more German medics off the front. You don't know whether to be horrified or impressed. Probably both. Historians still argue whether the Red Army's early reliance on mass human waves was a tragic necessity, or the product of political fantasy. What you know is this. No one seems to have a plan beyond get off the train and fight, which happens sooner than you'd like. The train screeches to a halt in the middle of a field. No station, no buildings, just a small clearing near a line of trees. The officer says this is forward staging. You and your comrades disembark with your packs, stepping into grass taller than your knees and air thick with humidity. In the distance you hear thunder, only it's not thunder. Artillery. German. The political officer tries to rally everyone. Do not fear the fascist shells, he bellows. Fear only your own cowardice. The effect is mixed. You sling your rifle, adjust your belt, try to make your boots feel less like stone buckets. The others form loose clusters, squinting into the trees, waiting for someone to say what comes next. Then the sergeant yells, "Dig!" No one argues. You drop to your knees and start clawing at the earth with your mess tin, your hands, anything. The soil is damp and clumpy. It sticks to your nails and gets in your mouth. Within minutes, you're filthy. Within an hour, you've made a shallow ditch that wouldn't stop a rabbit. But it's something. A gesture towards survival. A truck passes by on the road behind you. Inside, crates of ammunition. A wounded man with his arm in a sling, and a priest. You lock eyes with him for a moment. He nods once, solemn. You wonder if it's a blessing or a farewell. That night, you sleep in your half-dug foxhole. It rains, and you learn how cold mud can feel against your spine. The first time you hear it, you don't believe it's real. The sky's pink with morning, and for a moment there's peace. Just the sound of dew dripping from the leaves and the soft grumble of a comrade snoring through his helmet. Then a sharp crack, not thunder, sharper, closer. A moment later, a dull, resonant boom that thuds through the air like a hammer striking wet wood. "Get down!" someone yells, which is absurd because you're already lying in a ditch. The second shell lands 100 meters away. sending up a geyser of dirt and something darker. You shove your face deeper into the mud, tasting earth, the faint copper tang of fear rising up your throat. It's not like in the films. There's no dramatic music, no slow motion, just confusion, static in your brain, and the realization that this is actually happening, and it's only breakfast. For most conscripts in 1941, baptism by fire was less a ceremony and more a chaotic slap from reality. Historians still argue whether these first Soviet defensive positions were chosen based on strategy or sheer panic. You're betting panic. There's no trench system, no proper artillery support, just shallow scrapes in the dirt, a few trees for cover and wide, terrifying openness. Then small arms fire. It's distant at first, like someone popping bubble wrap down the valley, then closer, sharper. Bullets make an awful sound when they pass nearby, a short, angry hiss. You keep your head low, remembering one thing the sergeant actually taught. If you hear the shot, it wasn't meant for you. Helpful, comforting. Your orders are simple, hold the position. What they don't say is how. You have 5 rounds, no grenades, no machine gun in your squad. You're dug into soft soil with a rifle older than your grandmother's samovar. The enemy reportedly has tanks. Victor is beside you, muttering a string of prayers or curses. It's hard to tell. He peeks over the edge of the ditch and quickly ducks again. Too far to hit, too close to run. Someone else yells, "Where's command?" No answer. A few of your comrades start firing blindly into the tree line. It's mostly for morale. Yours, not theirs. You wait. You breathe. You watch ants crawl over a leaf next to your cheek, and for a moment, that's all your brain can process. Ants, dirt, breath. Then movement. You see them. Faint silhouettes at first. Grey-green shadows fanning out in a wide arc. German infantry. Methodical, calm. Their formation looks rehearsed, like they've done this before. Probably because they have. You raise your rifle, aim at the centre of mass, just like you were taught, or told, really. You squeeze the trigger. It clicks. Nothing. You forgot to chamber the round. Hands fumbling, you bolt it back, feel the brass slide into place. This time you fire. The recoil smacks your shoulder harder than you expect and the rifle jumps. You don't see if it hit. You don't even know if it got close, but you fired. That's something. All around you, chaos blossoms. Bullets snap through branches. Dirt explodes in puffs. Someone screams orders. Someone else just screams. A man to your left clutches his leg and hisses between his teeth, still holding his rifle like a lifeline. You think his name was Yuri, or maybe Ivan. There are too many Ivans. The Germans don't charge. They advance like chess pieces. Steady, deliberate. It's infuriating, terrifying, almost elegant. And you're a pawn with a chipped base and no player behind you. You fire again. This time the bolt sticks. You jam it back with your palm, gritting your teeth as the mechanism grinds. The bullet flies wide, disappearing into trees. Your heart is slamming against your ribs like a factory piston. Then, something explodes nearby. Closer than before, you duck, cover your head. Dirt showers your helmet, trickles down your collar. Someone yells, "Pull back!" but no one moves. Where would you even go? The sergeant appears out of nowhere. Eyes bloodshot, sleeves rolled to the elbow. "Fire in volleys," he shouts. "Together." And so you try. A half-dozen rifles bark in unison. One German figure jerks and falls, or trips. Hard to say, but it changes things. For a heartbeat, you believe. Maybe they can be stopped. But the moment vanishes. A tank appears at the edge of the field. It's not massive, Not one of the big cats people whisper about. Just a Panzer III, grey and boxy, with a turret like a clenched jaw. But to you it's a dragon made of iron. It swivels lazily, eyeing the horizon like it's bored. It opens fire. The ground jolts. Smoke erupts 20 metres to your right. Trees sway like they're shrugging off the blast. The sound is so deep it rattles your teeth. Then another, closer. The sergeant's voice again, but smaller now. Back! Back! The retreat isn't organised. It's barely a retreat. More like a desperate shuffle in reverse. Boots slipping in mud, rifles held tight. You run low, head down, feeling every breath like it might be your last. Your rifle bangs against your leg with each step, and you think you might vomit from the sheer pressure of not dying. Somewhere behind you, a horn blares. A Soviet truck, God knows from where, appears on the road, covered in branches and hauling something with a barrel. An anti-tank gun. It screeches to a halt and 3 men jump off like actors late for a play. They start setting up, calmly, efficiently, like they do this every morning. You watch in awe as the cannon is rolled into place, sighted, loaded, then it fires. The shell slams into the Panzer's side, sparks, a puff of black smoke. The tank doesn't explode, but it stops, just stops, like it forgot what it was doing. The crew starts bailing out, waving their arms. One limps, another is coughing. You blink. That actually worked. Victor cheers. Others whoop and slap each other on the back. It's a rare thing. Pure, dumb hope. Not the kind you read in pamphlets. The kind that smells like smoke and sweat and momentary survival. But it doesn't last long. More gunfire follows. You fall back into the tree line where a new line is hastily forming. There are fewer of you now. Some faces are missing. Others are simply blank, numb. You reload your rifle with your last round. 1 bullet. You feel it settle into the chamber like a final bet on a very bad hand. That night, you're ordered to rest, which means collapsing in a shallow hole with no fire, no food, and the adrenaline slowly curdling into something worse. Exhaustion. Someone nearby whispers a story about his wife. Someone else softly sings a folk song barely audible over the night insects. And you? You lie still, staring at the dark, wondering if tomorrow you'll be lucky enough to run again. You don't sleep. Not really. You drift in and out, one eye half open, fingers still curled loosely around your rifle. Somewhere in the back of your mind you know it's madness, but there's a strange comfort in the hardwood of the stock pressing against your arm, like a bad pillow in a worse bed, uncomfortable, sure, but yours. Dawn breaks with a whimper. A milky grey light seeps through the trees, the kind that promises nothing and delivers even less. There's no bugle, no whistle, no morning routine. Just a muttered order from the sergeant. Up, move, 10 minutes. You stretch, or try to. Everything aches. Your shoulders feel like they've been pounded with bricks. Your socks are damp and your boots are stiffer than yesterday. You don't even check for blisters anymore. It's safe to assume they're there, multiplying like rumours in a barracks. Breakfast is a small tin of lukewarm millet. It tastes like glue and sadness, but you eat every grain. There's a stale biscuit too, which you nearly break a tooth on before soaking it in water from your canteen. One man offers to trade a bit of lard for a cigarette. Another swaps a button for a spoon. The unofficial Red Army economy is thriving, based entirely on desperation. Victor leans over, gnawing on a slice of something that might once have been pork. Guess what? He says, mouthful. They've assigned us to sappers today. You blink. Sappers? Yep, Engineers, sort of. We dig holes, then we fill them. Sometimes we put mines in them first. You stare at him. Are you serious? He grins. It's either that or get shot digging holes slower. Technically, you're not trained for engineering work. Then again, you weren't trained for anything really. You were handed a rifle, yelled at for 2 days and tossed into a fight. So sure, why not be a sapper now? Your unit joins a larger group by a road that barely qualifies as a path. Just a rutted mess of mud and gravel that curves along a shallow river. Trees have been felled and dragged across to make a bridge. Your job, apparently, is to dig anti-tank ditches beside the road. Deep ones. Now. No one has proper tools. You share shovels 3 to 1. Some guys use their helmets. You end up with an entrenching tool that folds like an accordion and bites your fingers every third dig. As you dig, the sergeant explains that these trenches are part of a mobile defence strategy. Historians still argue whether such strategies ever really existed in the chaos of 41, or if commanders were just making things up as they went. Judging by the way the plan is drawn in chalk on a piece of firewood, you're leaning toward the latter. You dig and dig. The soil's soft but filled with roots. Every so often you strike a rock or an old fence post. It slows everything down. Sweat pours into your eyes. Your fingers blister, then tear, then keep going. It's hot despite the overcast sky. A sticky, swampy heat that soaks your shirt through and makes your collar feel like a wet noose. You start to think maybe dying in combat wouldn't be so bad compared to digging like this for the next month. Mid-morning, the commissar shows up. He's wearing a crisp tunic that somehow hasn't been dirtied by the mud that's on everyone else's boots, face and soul. He strides over like he owns the road, surveys your work and claps once. Comrades, you're the backbone of our victory. Your labour is the shield behind which the Red Army strikes. Someone mumbles, would rather strike than shield. You suppress a grin. The commissar continues. Stalin himself said that fortifications are the bones of defence. You wonder when Stalin said this and whether he meant it literally. You also wonder how a man can talk so long without actually helping dig. He reads from a leaflet for a while, then leaves. You keep digging. Around midday, a truck pulls up with sandbags, rusted pickaxes and a crate of dry bread. The driver hops out and says, "They're expecting tanks by nightfall." Then, almost as an afterthought, "Good luck." He drives away before anyone can throw a shovel at him. Afternoon blurs into evening. Your hands are filthy, your spine screams, and your left boot has sprung a leak. You keep imagining things crawling around your sock, but it's probably just your nerves, or possibly something with legs. Then, a break. Not official, just an unspoken moment where everyone leans on their shovels and stares at the horizon. The clouds break for a second and shafts of orange light slice through. It looks like a painting. A very dirty, very tired painting. Someone pulls out an accordion. You didn't even know anyone had one. Its Missner key sounds like a dying goat, but no one complains. The tune is slow and melancholic, some folk song from the Urals. You hum along without knowing the words. Victor does too, and for a second, it feels like you're all just people again. Not soldiers, not targets. Just tired men in a field, listening to music that doesn't belong to the war. A soft voice next to you says, "My brother played that." You turn to see a skinny kid. Can't be older than 16. His helmet's too big. "Before the war," he adds. You nod, not sure what to say. Most of the men have stopped talking about the before. It hurts too much. Then more digging. The trench line is starting to take shape. Zigzag patterns, steep sides, camouflage netting strung between trees. You can tell someone here once knew what they were doing. The rest of you are just following. Near sunset, a higher-ranking officer arrives. He points at 3 men, randomly it seems, and tells them to lay mines. They look at each other like they've been handed bags of snakes. "We weren't trained," one says. The officer shrugs. "Better learn fast." You're not picked. You're relieved. Then guilty about being relieved. Then just relieved again. By the time night falls, the trench is mostly done. It won't stop tanks, but it might slow them. That's all anyone's hoping for. Dinner is late. A pot of soup appears, thick with barley and mystery meat. You eat it with shaking hands, grateful for the warmth, even if it tastes like it was strained through a boot. The night is unusually quiet. A few distant rumbles, no orders yet. You curl up beside a log, your coat wrapped tight, rifle beside you. Someone starts whispering a ghost story. Not scary, just eerie. About a battalion that marched into a swamp and never came out. Sometimes, the storyteller says, you can hear them singing through the fog. Victor throws a twig at him. If they're singing, they're fine. You smile, then shift deeper into your coat. You stare up at the stars. They're faint, but there. No planes tonight, no artillery. Just a stillness you don't trust. And somehow, despite the cold, despite the fear, despite the dull throb in your back, you drift off. You wake to shouting. Not gunfire, not the scream of shells. Just shouting. Desperate, hoarse, and much too close. Stand to. Positions. Get up. Get up. Your eyes snap open, heart already racing. For a moment you don't know where you are. Trees, mud, this sour aftertaste of barley stew still in your mouth. Then it clicks. The trench, the mines, the road. Victor's already up, pulling his belt tight, helmet half on. You scramble after him, fingers fumbling with the rifle sling. Your body protests every movement, stiff with cold and sleep and fear. But adrenaline is a cruel motivator. It drags you upright whether you're ready or not. They're coming, someone says. It's not clear who. Maybe it's the sergeant. Maybe it's just the wind. You grab your shovel, not even sure why. Habit, maybe. Then toss it aside and crouch in the trench. The earth is still damp from the rain, your boots sinking an inch deeper with every shift. And then the sound. It's not what you expected. No thunderous tank engine, no battle cry. Just a low, rhythmic crunch. Boots, many boots, marching in time, coming from the forest road ahead. You peer over the edge, careful not to silhouette your head. The light still low just before dawn, the sky bruised with hints of blue and ash. And there, movement. Dozens, maybe more. Grey coats, long rifles, shadows stretching like vines. You swallow. They don't see you yet. The trench is too low and the camo nets are holding. For now. A whisper from the right. Hold fire. Wait for the first rank. Your finger curls tighter around the trigger. They keep coming. Calm, mechanical. Not charging, just advancing like they know this dance. You imagine what it must be like to be on their side. Clean uniforms, food, clear orders, a plan. You don't have a plan. Just a ditch and a prayer. And then someone fires. It's early. Too early. A single crack rips through the stillness like glass breaking. A German soldier falls. Hard to say if he's hit or just startled. Either way, the column reacts instantly. Shouting, scattering, dropping to the ground. Return fire erupts like fireworks in reverse. Bright flashes from the tree line, bullets slicing through branches. You duck, heart hammering, ears ringing. The sergeant roars something, probably an order, maybe a curse. You lift your rifle, aim, fire. You don't see if you hit anything, you never do. But the recoil's familiar now, like a violent handshake you've grown used to. You work the bolt again, almost smooth this time. Fire again, then again. The Germans are moving laterally, trying to flank. You know this from training such as it was, or maybe from instinct. Either way, it's bad. Right side, someone screams. You swing over. More figures darting through the trees. One drops to a knee, levels his weapon, and fires. You feel bark explode next to your ear. Splinters rake your cheek. You duck instinctively, teeth gritted. Then, an explosion. A mine. One of the ones laid last night. The sound is enormous, sucking all the air from the moment. When it fades, there's a stunned silence. Then another blast, closer. You hear shouting, confused, angry in German. It's working. For a second, just a second, you believe you might hold. Victor leans up beside you, grinning wildly. See that? They're stumbling. You nod, breathless. Yeah. Then a bullet snaps past your face. You drop again. Dirt in your mouth. You spit. Wipe your lip. Your hand comes away red. Just a scratch. Still. Your hands are shaking now. Not from pain. From the knowledge of how close that was. The firefight lasts longer than it should. You're low on ammo. Everyone is. Most men were given a dozen rounds, maybe 15. You're down to your last 2. Around you, the trench is littered with spent casings, torn cloth, and the smell of smoke. The sergeant moves down the line, handing out handfuls of bullets from a canvas pouch, like he's distributing candy at a grim birthday party. You get 3 more, 5 total. You reload, carefully. Then, silence. Just birds, leaves, and breathing. A lot of breathing. You glance over the edge again. The Germans have pulled back, at least for now. You see shadows moving through the trees, retreating into the forest. It's not a rout. More like reassessing. You collapse back into the trench. Not sitting, not standing. Just a weird angle of not quite dead yet. Around you, men begin checking each other. One guy's ear is bleeding. Another has a gash on his forearm wrapped hastily with a scarf. No one seems to know where the field medic is. Victor holds up a canteen. Still water in it, he says. Celebrate? You take a swig. It's warm. Tastes faintly of rust. Glorious. Someone starts laughing. A wild, ragged sound. Then another joins, and another. Soon, half the trench is laughing. Not from humour, but from sheer disbelief. You're alive. You shouldn't be, but you are. A few hours pass in jittery quiet. Then orders come down. Dig deeper. Reinforce. Reorganise. Prepare for round 2. You sigh. Grab your shovel and get to work. The day drags. A runner arrives with news from command. Apparently your unit held admirably. Whatever that means. You're now part of a strategic delay action. Historians still debate whether that was a euphemism for retreat or genuine doctrine. Doesn't matter to you, you're staying here. For now. By late afternoon, another truck appears. This one carries actual supplies, more ammunition, a few crates of tinned beef, and miraculously clean socks. You almost weep when you pull on the new pair. They itch like crazy, but they're dry. Heaven. You eat quickly, cold beef that tastes vaguely metallic, and bread that cracks at the corners. But it's food. Real food. Your stomach stops growling long enough for you to feel human again. As the sun begins to set, the air cools, and the trees glow gold. It would be beautiful if not for the gunpowder scent lingering in the wind. You sit on the edge of the trench with Victor, passing the time quietly. I thought we are done this morning, he says. You nod. Me too. Maybe we are tomorrow. You don't answer. You both know he's right. That night there's no music, no ghost stories, just quiet. And watch rotations. Your second shift. Midnight to 3. The worst one. You lie on your back until then, watching stars poke holes in the night sky. You wonder if anyone back home is looking up at the same sky. Maybe your sister. Maybe the girl you used to walk home after school. You try to picture her face, but it's fading. Everything before the war is. When it's your turn, you take your rifle and perch on the edge of the trench. The forest is black. Still. Your breath fogs in the air. Nothing moves, but you keep watch, just in case. Morning comes slowly. Not in a blaze of glory, but like an old man rising from a creaky chair. The mist clings low to the ground, thick as soup, muffling sound and bending shapes into ghosts. Trees look like sentries, bushes become soldiers. For the first 10 minutes of dawn, you're convinced everything's alive and watching. Victor stirs beside you, groaning as he stretches. Still here, he mutters. You grunt in agreement, too tired for words. Your night watch was uneventful, but that didn't make it restful. You're learning that in war, quiet is not calm. Quiet is just the part before something happens. The sergeant limps down the trench with a list in hand. Commissar inspection this afternoon, he says, like he's announcing weather.